Hey everyone, Chris McLean back with yet another episode. And in the studio today, I've got Joris, the founder and CEO of Dexter Agency. And they're a remote team of e-com conversion optimization and email marketing specialists. The agency serves high revenue e-com stores that are ready for continuous growth. With over 1,500 A/B tests under his belt, Joris literally wrote the book on it. A book called Kill Your Conversion Killers. Say that 10 times fast. Maybe you've got the book, maybe you're an online store, maybe you're an e-com. Joris, thanks so much for dropping by. I look forward to getting into everything that you do.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Great to be here.
No, pleasure. So you've literally written the book on conversion for e-com stores. So let's rewind back from there. And how did Dexter Agency come about? And I'm interested to hear what how the name Dexter Agency actually came about as well, because it's obviously not your name unless it's a middle name or something like that. But take us back to the foundations.
Yeah, basically, well, my journey in the agency world started a long time ago. I graduated 20 years or 21 years ago. So, and I started my career in agencies. I started in the classical advertising agencies back at the day. I mean, there wasn't much online marketing going on at the time. And I did that, and I loved that job for quite a while. I did it for about 10 years. But after a while, I got kind of fed up with it because there was a lot of pointless discussions about make this bigger, make this blue, make this red, put it on the right, put it on the left, and like pointless discussions based on just on gut feeling. And I like to be a bit more productive than getting stuck in that kind of discussions. And I started looking for something else, and I started my first business that failed, and then I discovered online marketing by accident almost, because I started a blog, and then I was like, oh, okay, how should I get traffic here? So I dove into SEO, and then I discovered that I actually love digital marketing because it's so data driven, as opposed to a lot of the classical advertising. So that's where my digital marketing journey started, and I started working for a digital marketing agency where I did a lot of SEO, a lot of PPC, and I learned a lot. But one day I saw on a conference, actually, I kind of fell in love with conversion optimization. I saw a talk about conversion optimization. I was like, oh, this is so cool, because it kind of combines everything I learned in the classical advertising world about design, about psychology, copywriting, that kind of stuff. But it combines it with data. And so there's no endless discussions anymore about make it blue, make it red, put it on the right, put it on the left. It's like, let's test it and let's see what the data says. And that's how I started on my journey into conversion optimization. And after a while, I tried to do that at the agency, but they were not really, they didn't have clients that were ready for conversion optimization at the time. So I decided to venture out on my own. And that's how it all started. And I started as a solo consultant, like really I didn't have the plan to start an agency, but at some point you get to a point where there's either you have to say no to new clients or you move into an agency. And so I chose the second, because I have a hard time saying no sometimes. So that's how I started the agency, and that was about 5-6 years ago now. And it's been growing steadily. It's been with ups and downs, I guess, like with many other agencies. But we're now a team of 7 people, location independent, spread out across Europe and US.
Yeah, amazing. And you went sort of straight into e-com. Was that did you start as e-com? I mean, that's generally where you sort of see CRO sort of happening, that conversion rate optimization obviously works really well in e-com and online stores.
Yeah.
Did you go straight to e-com, or did you play around in some other places first?
At the very beginning, maybe the first couple of months, did a couple of other projects as well. But then I soon started to realize that basically an e-com is where you can demonstrate the value when you run an A/B test, and you say like, hey, this is the expected impact on your annual revenue that you can see from this winning test. That's how you motivate clients to keep doing this. Whereas
it's immediate feedback.
So I was like, and I always loved e-com, even before I started doing conversion optimization. The clients I loved working for most, like when I did SEO and PPC, were e-com clients, and so it was a kind of a very logical choice to venture into and specialize into e-com. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you've got a sort of a hot seat of, you can change a color on something, you can change something on a landing page, and you can follow that all the way through to how much money did we make today.
Yeah,
it's a pretty great environment to see. You can do, I guess the same thing does work for sales pages and sales funnels and more marketing type. Real link to, I've changed something and I can see today money's gone up or money's gone down. Because it's very, very effective. And in terms of e-com, do you work with any type of e-com? Are you working with more your sort of big your big platforms like your Amazons, or is it more independents, your Etsy's, that sort of thing? Is it whoever, whenever, or is it just sort of people that own their own assets?
So yeah, one of the reasons why e-com is also interesting to specialize in terms of conversion optimization is they typically have a lot more traffic than a typical lead generation site, and you need a lot of traffic if you want to run A/B tests. So so in terms of e-com that we work with, usually they're doing 5 to 10 million a year at least, and up. There's a lot bigger clients as well that we work for. For them, the return is almost immediate. Sometimes just one winning A/B test pays for our fee for years to come. So it's a no-brainer for them to do that. So typically the kind of clients we work for are somewhat bigger e-commerce companies. It doesn't really matter if they're a reseller or a D2C brand. However, what I notice is there's been a trend in prospects or leads coming in, mainly D2C and mainly Shopify. That's like probably 80% of the leads that we get in. I think D2C brands usually they have more margin, so they're willing to invest in different areas. Resellers have a harder time because they have to compete on price. Usually, price is a big factor. Margins are lower. So in D2C brands, they seem to be willing to invest more in other stuff than just generating traffic.
Mm-hmm. I guess they have more control of that entire kind of end-to-end funnel system, right? As well, you can literally tweak it from the first page hit, or from the ad almost, right, all the way through that first page hit, all the way through to add-ons and upsells and downsells, and all the way through there. Whereas on an Amazon, you resell and you control less and less of those, all the moving pieces. So I guess it's interesting. That makes a lot of sense that there's kind of more to play with in that space. So when these customers come to you, sort of what's their biggest issue? What's their challenge? Are they just looking to sell more stuff? Are they finding that there's a blockage somewhere in their system and they just don't know what that is? What tends to be the biggest thing that they're trying to overcome when they knock on your door?
Yeah, what we notice is most e-commerce companies, they start out with investing a lot in traffic, and it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, if without traffic, you're not going to sell anything. So they invest a lot in it. But what we see is at some point they start plateauing, or growth is becoming harder and harder to do, because in the beginning you can scale pretty fast. If you find a couple of campaigns that work really well, if you set Google Ads up, that's like immediate return that you get. If you set up some Facebook campaigns and you start growing really fast, and they kind of get in that stuck almost in a traffic mindset, and they try different things out, and it's getting harder and harder to grow. And then that's the point where they start looking at other ways to grow, and they see that conversion optimization is a great way to help them grow, because not only are you going to increase your conversion rate, so you're going to make more money, but also your ROAS is going to get better. You may even start campaigns again that previously were not profitable, but now are profitable because it's converting better. So it's a great way to keep growing. And it's not just conversion optimization. I mean, what we tend to look at or define as conversion optimization is anything but traffic. So really working with what you already have. So what we work on typically is on a conversion rate, average order value, and purchase frequency. So purchase frequency, that's a lot of email marketing, but average order value, usually there's quite a bit of opportunities there as well. And that's just working with what you already have without having to invest in extra traffic. Because at the end of the day, with buying traffic, you depend a lot on the ad network. So if those prices go up, and they tend to go up over time, it becomes harder and harder to scale sometimes, or something like an iOS 14 update happens, and it becomes harder and harder sometimes to make your retargeting campaigns work in this particular case. So you depend a lot on ad networks, and you're making them rich, but you should be making yourself rich. So really work with what you have and try to improve that. And if you work on those three levers, your conversion rate, your average order value, and purchase frequency, basically it's not impossible to double your revenue by just working on those three levers and not doing anything extra with your traffic. Just keep your traffic as it is, and then work on these three other levers. But a lot of companies tend to forget that, because they're stuck in that traffic mindset because it used to work for them. It got them to this point, but it's probably not going to get them to the next stage of their growth without investing in those other three levers. So I think conversion optimization as such is more like about working with what you already have and trying to get more out of that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess that as you're saying, that sort of front end traffic mindset is, well, I need more sales, so if I want to 2x my business, I've got 1,000 leads coming in. If I put 2,000 leads in, that'll double my business. Isn't necessarily the case, because you might be sending those 2,000 people to a funnel that's broken or not optimized. So you're not necessarily getting the same conversion by driving the same traffic. What you're saying is that the prices go up and the traffic becomes more expensive, and if the system's not optimally converting, you're just dropping money. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
and what happens also is that at some point you kind of tap out on all relevant traffic, and you have to go after colder and colder and colder traffic and try and warm them up and try to convert them. So your campaigns are not you cannot scale your campaigns into infinity. That's impossible without working on the other levers. That's really important. Another point as well is that if you invest in traffic, so usually it's a lot of PPC, right? If you have to keep paying that every single month. Whereas if you improve your conversion rate, your average order value, your purchase frequency, okay, that's an investment as well, and it takes a couple of months. But if you stop that over months or sometimes years, because you can keep going and keep improving. But if you would stop that investment, you will not fall back to your previous levels because you've optimized that already. Whereas if you have to, I don't know, for some reason you have to save some money on campaigns, and you close down a couple of campaigns, then you're just going to fall back. You know that your revenue is going to get a hit. And that's not the case with those other levers, with conversion rates, average order value, and purchase frequency.
Yeah, so almost like a compounding effect that happens.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what we say as well, especially when you start A/B testing. I mean, there's a lot of smaller steps, but there's a huge compounding growth. If you can increase your conversion rate by 5%, so from 1 to 1.05%, and not from 1 to 6%, but so if you do that every single month, by the end of the year, you have a huge compounding effect. So sometimes it seems like, oh, these are smaller steps, but all those smaller steps, they really add up. And if you combine that with the fact that maybe you can acquire new traffic that previously wasn't profitable, but because your site is converting better, or you get a better return because you have a better customer lifetime value because your email campaigns are optimized, then I mean, it just all works together. Whereas a lot of people are very much focused on traffic. And actually, if you ask a question like, do you need more traffic or do you need more revenue? Answer is always going to be more revenue, but somehow it's equal in their heads. It's like, oh, I need more traffic because it got them to this point, but that's the wrong thinking.
Yeah. Nice question. It's a really good probing question. And the right answer is the problem is revenue. The problem is the income on the back end, not necessarily traffic. But it's very easy to make that direct connection between generate leads, make money, and kind of skip the stuff in the middle. So in terms of that stuff in the middle, when you're talking A/B testing, split testing, and those sort of three main levers, what stuff do you go after? What's the lowest hanging fruit? Is it stuff like headlines and copy? Is it the color of the button, which tends to be kind of, if you just change the color of the button, you're going to make 300% increase. What kind of stuff do you go after when you're running tests?
So that's really on a case-by-case basis. So we always start out with doing a lot of research and try to find what's happening on this particular site, because what may be a problem on one side is not necessarily a problem on other sides. So we just don't make any assumptions, and we let the data lead our hypotheses for A/B testing. And what we do that research, we look at where are people dropping off, how much money would that represent as well. If we see, like in Google Analytics, there's a huge drop off on this particular step, but there's also a big drop off on the other step, then we try to calculate, I mean, it's not a prediction, but try to make an estimate, like, okay, if we optimize this step, how much more money could we make on a yearly basis? If we optimize this step, how much more money would that be? Then you can prioritize in function of the impact on your revenue. So it really depends on the site. Having said that, there's a couple of areas that are classics, almost like a good value proposition on the homepage. Usually, there's a lot of efforts to be made there because e-commerce, for some reason, they think they don't always need it. But we consistently see homepages with a value proposition outperform homepages without a value proposition. And there's cart and checkout, big problems in cart and checkout. Obviously, they need to be tackled first. And another page where a lot of wins can be found is on a product page. Anything like in the decision area, and decision area is the area where the button is. That's going to help any nudge that you can give your consumers there to make that decision. Because on a product page is the moment where they go from browsing mode to buying mode. That's where they make a decision. Like, okay, I want this, and I'll click on a button or not. So that's a page that usually can be optimized a lot, and there's a lot of tweaks to be made. And sometimes it's the little tweaks that can have a huge impact. I'm not talking about button color. Button color is actually a pretty easy one. It's just take a contrasting color and that's it. We've never tested that. It's just a waste of time. And it's a good sign if you read a blog post about button color testing. They don't know what they're doing. So
it's a bit of a furphy, or a bit of a lot of people talk about that as the
it's a classic example, but it's a no-brainer. Just change the color to something that really stands out on the page, and that's enough. You don't need anything else. But there could be other. We've had like seriously really big wins with clients. We've had it in 2 cases where they were offering actually a really good guarantee on the product page, but it was not visible enough. And just by making that really visible in the decision area near the add to cart button, that huge wins, like 100,000 and in one case even millions of extra revenue a year by just highlighting that. It's already on the page, but people were not seeing it. So that's also why you need to lead with the data and really understand what's going on and why. The reason those data are that's so important is that I think it was Visual Website Optimizer, an A/B testing tool, that did a research about this. And what they found was that people who run A/B tests without doing any research, any formal research, just like random IDs based on, I don't know, best practices or case studies or whatever, what they tend to see is only 1 test out of every 7 A/B tests that they set up is a significant result, not winner. So it could be a significant loser as well. So 6 out of 7, they don't make any difference whatsoever. A and B are the same statistically speaking, and the 7th is a significant result, and that could be a winner or a loser. What we see with testing based on research is that we get 1 significant winner out of every 3 tests. So out of every 3, a significant winner. So that's a huge difference. You invest a little bit of time up front doing the research, but as soon as you start testing, you'll catch up for that immediately. So it's super important to let the data tell you what to test.
I guess that's the difference between having a cowboy and an expert. Look at your stuff and look at your website, right? Someone that's, as you said, that decision of if somebody's talking about changing button color, then maybe don't call them, call Joris instead, and find someone that's actually that's significant, going from 1 out of 7. My maths isn't great, but 1 out of 7 to 1 out of 3, that's pretty significant in terms of you're literally going from throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks to
Absolutely.
working out whether shit's the right thing to throw in the first place. That's a really weird analogy. But
I should use that in some PowerPoint presentations with visuals, and that would be a great one.
It's yours. Have at it. So you can have that one.
No, it's true. I mean, it's a struggle as well, because there's a lot of misinformation about conversion optimization, and let's be honest, it's still a pretty new field, and most clients don't really understand. They have an idea about SEO, PPC. They know they should invest in it because otherwise it's not going to work for them. They need it; it's essential. And then about conversion optimization, they don't always know that they need it. They have a lot of misinformation about best practices cases. So I do get clients or leads coming in and say like, hey, tell me what I should change. And I'm like, no, let's have a look at the data first. And we have to do the research. And yes, that research takes about a month to complete, and it's an investment up front. And so for some clients, they're like, nah, you know what, that other expert, he just tells me what I should change. And I don't even need to A/B test. That's fine. I mean, usually, I won't argue with that. If they're not ready for this approach, that's fine. Usually they'll mature to the point where they're ready for the approach. And sometimes you have to. I mean, it sounds a little bit harsh, but sometimes you have to let them make a mistake to realize that it's not the best approach. And then I remember one time where we just onboarded a new client, and they had been speaking to other agencies as well. And one of those agencies owners, he had to say like, you know what, you don't have that typical benefits bar, that you see on all e-commerce, like free shipping, US made, that kind of stuff that you see typically on a lot of e-commerce. So that client told me like, hey, that other agency, they said I should just implement it. It's a best practice. It's a no-brainer. Let's do this. And I was like, you know what? I wanna test this. We don't have any data yet because we just started working together. We were still doing the research. I was like, I don't have any data yet. Let's test it. I think it's a bit of a risk to just go ahead and implement it. Yes, it is likely to improve your conversions. In many cases, it does, but I'm not sure in your case. So we tested it, and what it turned out that it was a big loser. It hadn't. It would actually cost them, if they had gone ahead and implemented, it would cost them about $1 million a year in revenue that they would have lost by implementing it, which is not I mean, I'm not saying don't have that benefits bar. It's likely to work for you, but in their particular case, it didn't work, and they were just going to go ahead and implement it based off best practices or an expert that told them just implement it. And obviously, if you don't have the traffic to A/B test, then you do the research, you try to understand what's happening, and you make an educated guess. It's not going to be as perfect as A/B testing, but you have to do something, and it's better than doing nothing and really look at the data, try to make the best guess possible. But it's always going to be a guess at that point, but there's no other way around it.
Yeah. So what sort of volumes are you talking about when you say, like, to make it statistically significant? What sort of numbers are you throwing at an A/B test to really get? I mean, 10 people coming through a shopping cart, that's obviously not going to give me much information. Where's that sort of testing limit sit?
Yeah, so what we typically say is if you run an e-commerce and you're doing 1,000 transactions a month, that's a good point to start thinking about A/B testing. Anything below that, if you have, let's say, roughly about 500 to 1,000 transactions a month, you can run an A/B test once in a while for important stuff, when it's about important decisions that have an impact on your company. For instance, let's say you want to start working with a shipping threshold. You're offering free shipping, but it's getting kind of expensive, and you want to move to shipping as of $50 or whatever. That could be an ID to test that, because it has quite of a big impact on your business, because it could improve your margins, but it could also mean that your conversion rate suffers because you have that shipping threshold. So stuff like that, if it's like really important for your business to know, you could do it with 500 transactions a month as of 500. If anything below that, I wouldn't do that. But if you want to go to a continuous cycle of A/B testing, which is ultimately where you would need to be, then you should have at least 1,000 transactions a month.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's a pretty large scale business if you're doing that sort of volume, but it makes sense. So it's hard to make decisions
Yeah.
When you just don't, if you're trying to make correct data-backed decisions, you've got to have significant amounts of data to make a call on it. So, yeah, it makes sense. So take us through killing our. You've literally written the book on the subject. So take us through when did you write the book? What are we going to learn in the book? Where can we get the book? All that good kind of stuff.
Right. So I wrote the book. What was it? Almost 3 years ago already. Wow, time flies. And so what I do in the book is really I've written out the entire process. Like if you want to do this yourself, you can almost use it as a manual and go through it yourself. I've really shared everything that we do in the agency as well. Obviously, in those last 3 years, we've evolved a little bit, but this is like a really good foundation to understand how it all works. And it's what I wanted to do was make it very pragmatic for e-commerce owners, because there's a lot of books out there that stay at a high level and that are not for everyone. I wanted to make something like, okay, if you want to do this yourself, just follow the steps in the book. And then so the title, Kill Your Conversion Killers, that's we're called Dexter Agency, Dexter the show, serial killer who kills killers. We kill conversion killers, and that's actually where the agency name came from.
From Dexter. Now come full circle. That makes a lot of sense.
It started out as a joke, basically, but we didn't find a better name, and then it stuck. It was like, actually, it's not that bad. It has some personality to it. So it's like,
nice.
You know what? Nice. Let's do that. But surprisingly, not everyone gets it when they see Dexter Agency, then we kill your conversion killers. But it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, I hope that your agency wraps up and performs better than the end of Dexter. The end of Dexter as a series. we won't go into that, but that's a different conversation.
But there's a new season coming, so maybe that's gonna.
Oh wow!
Gonna compensate for the shitty ending of.
Well, these reboots can either go one or two. Maybe they really need. This is something they need to split test before they launch it.
Happy to do that for them.
Awesome, Joris. If people do want to find out more about yourself and Dexter, and also grab a copy of the book, where's the best place for them to connect with you and do those things?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect there. You can send me an email on joris@dexter.agency, or you can grab a free copy of my book on dexter.agency/free-book. So you get a PDF version. You can buy it on Amazon as well, but why pay for it if you can get a free copy, right?
Sounds brilliant. And as always, I'll drop all of those links in the show notes so that people click on those. Grab a copy of the book, find out more about what you do, and start killing their conversion killers. Really interesting stuff, Joris. Thanks for dropping by and spending the time. It's been very, very insightful.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It was a great talking to you.
No, pleasure. I learned a lot. Hopefully people out there that are running e-com stores or running marketing for e-com stores got a lot of insights and ideas, as well as how they can start to look at some of this stuff, some of the triggers they can pull in, getting these conversion optimization happening. Because as you're saying, there's significant growth, and a lot of money can be made when you get it right. So appreciate your time, appreciate the value. Thanks everyone for dropping by, tuning in, and until next time, thank you, Joris, for the time, and we'll see you on the next episode, everyone.